Hello, my name is Bora Chung, and I have a story for you. So, at the end of the 9th century, during the rule of Queen Jinzong, the queen's fourth and youngest son, named Yang Pe, sailed to China. He had gifts for the Chinese emperor, and on board with him were 50 brave soldiers to guard him and his treasures. But you know how it goes, the ship met bad weather and had to be stranded on a random island. And that night, Yang Pe had a dream, where an old guy showed up and said he wanted Yang Pe to leave one of his best archers on the island, and Yang Pe will have good wind to go to China. So Yang Pe woke up, wrote down each soldier's name on a piece of wood, and threw them in the sea. And when you throw wood in the sea, it would float, but one piece of wood sank, and that had the name Gotaji. So Gotaji was left on the island, and everybody else boarded the ship and left. So Gotaji is just sitting there, like thinking, what am I gonna do? And then this old man appears again. This time for real, not in a dream. And this old guy says he's the Dragon King of West Sea. And he asked Gotaji to kill an evil creature who comes every day at dawn to kill and eat the Dragon King's family members. So Gotaji doesn't have any choice, right? So Gotaji waited by the shore, and at dawn, there comes a figure, and it turns out it's a young Buddhist monk. And this young Buddhist monk starts chanting, and then all the dragons in the sea starts flowing to the surface. And the Buddhist monk approaches one of the dragons to kill him. So Gotaji shot his arrow and killed the Buddhist monk first. And when he went to see what happened to the monk, it turns out it was not a Buddhist monk, it was an old fox in disguise. So the Dragon King thanked Gotaji profusely and gave him many treasures and gifts. And the Dragon King changed his daughter, the Dragon Princess, into a beautiful flower on a tree branch. And he gave this branch to Gotaji. And he sent all of his sea dragons to take Gotaji home with his treasures and the tree branch. And as Gotaji stepped on land, the beautiful tree branch, the flower branch, turned into a woman. And Gotaji married her and lived happily ever after. So that's the utopia part, right? There is one problem with this story. Queen Jinzong actually existed. She ruled from 887 to 897, never married, had no children. But every version of the story in every single medieval Korean text says the queen's fourth and youngest son, Yang Pe, set sail to China. So Korean scholars mostly agree that this queen's fourth son business is a way of saying that this story is fiction, because Queen Jinzong was actually, oh my goodness, this is a curse. Sorry. So Queen Jinzong, because I was about to say Queen Jinzong was evil. She was actually evil, and she was known to be very corrupt. So if the storyteller said queen's son, then people will go, oh my God, the queen had a son, she stashed away a child somewhere. But if you say the queen's fourth son, then people will know that, well, she never had a first son, so this has to be a made-up story. Okay. Then the scholars asked, who made up the story and why? And I wanted to tell you my favorite interpretation by some professor named Jung Yeon-sik from Seoul Women's University. He says that the nameless storyteller most likely looked up at the constellation at night and made up the story based on the movement, colors, and brightness of the stars. Professor Jung actually wrote a 40-page research paper, complete with the star map from medieval Korea, the Becquerel number chart of each star that plays a major role in the story, and their shape and color. And he explains that this set of stars is the arrow, and that set of stars must have looked like a branch with a flower on it. And Professor Jung contends that the storyteller must have been a merchant who was active in the international trade with China at the time. The merchant storyteller probably spent a lot of time looking up in the sky, hoping for good weather and a safe journey home with many treasures from the Tang Empire. And I really, really love this interpretation. The medieval storyteller from somewhere in the year 890s. And the modern historian from 21st century Korea looked up at the same stars and understood each other. And I'd like to think that this is the power of stories. A good story will travel across time of 1,100 years and counting, and still make you look up in the stars and dream. This is why we need stories, and I believe this is why we tell stories to each other to this day. Thank you.